had another particularly good session on the reef spearfishing for bass, and I thought I'd make a quick video about it and drop you some more tips for your own spearfishing. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel and drop me a comment below. Now, when I'm looking for marks, and this is not the mark where this video is shot at, I'm looking for a few different things, and you can see here how the rocks go into the water at quite a gentle slope. And when you get rocks going in quite gently like this, you tend to get a lot of kelpy gullies and a lot of different reefs to explore. You can see these boulders sticking out here provide a bit of structure. And of course, off Anglesey there's always some stunning views, and it's well worth going out on these coastal recce's. Now, I fished an area of a particularly remote beach on this session. This is very, very remote.
Now, my last couple of videos I've had a couple of quite unpopular comments towards them, and the reality is that whenever you're shooting bass, everyone's got an opinion about it. If you shoot a small one, everyone thinks it's too small. If you shoot a big one, people whinge that it's too big. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be naysayers and haters. That's just the reality.
When you head out to the reefs, always have a game plan in mind, and once you're about 10 to 15 metres away, it's time to enter stealth mode and have your gun ready for those bass lurking off the edge of the reef, as you can see here. You can see a bass here, not a particularly big one, just sat calmly in the shallows, and again this clip shows you just how much time you've got to shoot a bass when they're like this. You've got a lot of time. Of course, you see lots of other species around the reef as well, such as this flounder you can see sat on the sand, and this is a takeable size, but I'm not a big fan of eating flounder anymore. I think it's got a bit of a muddy taste, and also once you've shot a fish it can spook all the others, so I just let this one go. And you'll see in the next clip a small bass that I just leave to swim, just drifting over the reef here, drop down, and you can see a bass there that's been quite easy to shoot, but it's not really worth it. And again, appreciate the viz isn't great. You can see some more bass here milling around in front of me. Would have been pretty easy shooting one of these, but it's just not worth it when you know there's probably bigger bass around and you want to wait. Now we're going to look at a typical stalk here over the kelp. The viz is not great at all, maybe 3 to 4 metres, and often you'll find that the viz is much worse over the kelp than it is in the open. You can see a bass here. Now watch how I wait for the kelp to sway to the side before taking the shot. Just drift over it, bang, shoot it just behind the gill plate in the most solid bit of the bass. This is a pretty good sized fish, and you'll see this at the end of the video. This is actually a very, very nice bass. Now, as I was saying at the start, you get a lot of these gullies. Now these gullies provide a pocket of slack water where the bass can rest, and there's unfortunately none in this particular gully. You can just see how we move over these, letting the kelp sway back and forwards and exposing the bass. Now off the edge of the reefs you often get massive shoals of bass, and that's what I started to dive in. Once the current starts to really run, the bass start to be more active, hunting, just hoovering up any sand eels and crabs on that reef, and often they'll come in very, very fast. You see I'll drop down here, the typical dive onto the reef, and in a second you'll see a couple of bass, definitely undersized, shoot past me at the start of this dive. Now as soon as you know bass are in the area, it's worth staying on that area and really giving it your best shot in that place. Once you're on fish, there's no point leaving them, especially when they're moving actively like this. And you can see here 2 bass just moved past. Could have easily taken one of those, but not really worth it, because I know there's likely to be much bigger shoals of bass around, such as this one. There's a few quite big bass in this shoal that I just didn't shoot, and you often get so fixated on looking for an absolute monster that you don't shoot 5 or 6 pound fish that are in the shoal, and you'll see some of these later. Yeah, both of those fish here are pretty decent size. And dive after dive on this reef, I was just surrounded by bass. There were just ridiculous numbers of them. There's about 10 dives in this video, and every dive was like this. You can see that bass in front of me there. That's a pretty decent fish. That's probably approaching 6.5 pounds, and I just didn't shoot it. Now this reef is actually a really good example of where I tend to find a lot of fish. Is in an area of flat, barren sand, just massive sand flats for kilometre after kilometre. And this is one of the only points of structure in that whole area. It doesn't hold huge numbers of bait fish, but I think bass drifting over it tend to stop on that reef. Now you see here an example of when bass are easier to shoot. When they're in big shoals, you often get distracted by all the other bass in the shoal, and also when one bass spooks, they all spook. But this one here, on its own, look how slowly it's moving, and an easy shot there to take it out. A nice fish there, about £5. And in this next photo, you can see the bass that I shot in the shallows, a pretty nice fish. Just drop me a comment if you think it's too big. And the next video will be exploring another series of really remote reefs, so subscribe to the channel, make sure you don't miss out on that one. Be another good video. Until then, enjoy your spearfishing.